Good morning, students. This is my introduction to decimals. So here we are. We're going to learn all about the basics of what decimals are, and I hope this little video helps you. So we're going to start out. Decimals are a way of expressing part of a whole, and we'll start out with this number 3.6. So if you'll notice, this here, the 3 is in the ones column. And this 0.6 is what you might not be familiar with. So we have a decimal point right here, and after it we have a 6. And this 6 right here is part of 1. It's similar to a fraction, and this is a tenth, right? Our math system is called a base 10 system, and of course 10 tenths equals 1 whole. So this 3.6 is really the same as 3 and 6 over 10. That's what it is, right? And 10 tenths equals 1 whole. So if you added 4 more tenths to this, you would get 4. All right, so this stands for 3 ones and 6 tenths. Another way you could think about this would be 36 tenths, right? If you used an improper fraction, right? 10, 20, 30, and 6 more left over. So that's 3 ones and 6 tenths. If we were to put it in a place value chart, we would go 3.6. There are no 100ths in this number or in this decimal. So that's our first example right there. And we'll go ahead and do another example. So now we have 4.7. So take a look at this. Same thing as before. It is going to be 4 ones and 7 tenths, right? So you could even write that a little differently if you wanted to. You could write that as 4 ones and 7 tenths, right? So there's another way you could write it in unit form or in word form right there. 4 ones and 7 tenths, okay? And then if we're going to put it in the place value chart, we would put a 4 there, our decimal point right there, and 7 tenths. And again, these 7 tenths means part of 1. Now, you already know what fractions are. So this is 7 out of 10. If it was 10 over 10, it would equal 1 whole. So if I add 3 more tenths to this, I would get 5 ones. But I don't have that, right? Okay, and then we'll go down here to 0.2. Now, this time, I don't have any ones because I have a 0 in the ones column, right? But what I do have is right here, I have 2 tenths. Or you could write it like this, 2 tenths. Okay, so that's the basics of what it is. Now, there might be another way to think about it. If you want to think about something that you're more familiar with, you might want to think about money, right? We use this all the time. So if you think about this in terms of dollars and cents, here you might be able to think about the top one as $3.60, right? You might think about the second one as $4.70, and you might think about the last one as $0.20, right? And that's what it is, right? 2 tenths is like 2 dimes, right? 7 tenths is like 7 dimes, and 6 tenths is like 6 dimes, okay? I forgot to put it in the place value chart, so this would be 0.2, right? No ones, but 2 tenths. All right, let's try a few more examples on the next page. So now we're going to move a little further into this. So let's think about it another way. Take a look. We now have 3 digits. Well, we still have the ones column right here. We have 1, 1, and we'll go ahead and put our decimal point in. Now, we don't have any tenths for this one, so there are 0 tenths. Oh, that's interesting. But what do we have next? Well, if you divide 10 into 10 equal parts, you now have 3 hundredths, right? So this is 1 whole and 3 hundredths, 3 over 100, okay? So that's, 1 and 3 hundredths, right? Hundredths with a TH. Right? Okay, so that's what that number is. Let's take a look at the second one. Now, this is interesting because here's what we have. We have 2 whole numbers, so let's go ahead and draw that in our place value. So 2 ones, put a decimal point right there. Then we do have 7/10. And finally, 4/100. Okay, but now we have to really think about this. How are we going to write this as a fraction? We are going to write the whole number as 2, but we're not going to write 7/10 and then 4/100. We're going to actually put them together. And we're going to realize that 7/10, right, as we put it there, 0.7, is actually 70/100. So we're going to put it all together, and you're going to get 2 and 74 over 100. 2 and 74/100. It is 2 ones, 7/10, and 4/100. But when you put it all together, it equals 74/100. And we'll do one more example just like that. Here we have it 9 ones. Okay, so we have 9 ones, 6/10, and 3/100. So we're going to put that in our place value chart over here, add my decimal point, and 3/100, right? And what is that going to equal? Well, instead of 6/10, we're going to write 60/100, and we're going to say 9 ones and 63 over 100, right? So that is 9 and 63/100. Okay, 9 and 63/100 with a TH. So that's how you understand that decimal. Now, of course, if we want to go back and think about this in terms of money again, which I know we're all familiar with, this first one would be like $1.03. And this next one would be like having $2.74. And finally, this last one here would be like having $9.63. And so that's another way to look at it and to understand it. So that's what decimals are. Wow, now where can we figure out more about decimals? Let's do some measurement. All right, we all know the metric system, and the metric system is based on decimals. So right here we have 2.5 centimeters, and that could also be thought of as 2 and 5/10 of a centimeter, or even 2.5 centimeters if you want to use an equivalent fraction. And we would start here at 0 on our ruler, and we would draw it all the way out to here. And look at this. So 2 centimeters and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5/10 of a centimeter. Now, if you really think about that, all these little tiny tenths of a centimeter are something. And you learn that in the metric system. Those are each millimeter. So you could also think of this as 25 millimeters, or you could think of it as 2 centimeters and 5 millimeters, right? But for this purpose, the main thing we probably want to think about it as is 2.5 centimeters, okay? But those are all the different things that it equals. Let's go ahead and try another example. This one we have 4.7 centimeters. So that's 4 centimeters and 7/10 of a centimeter, right? And we would take our ruler and we would start here, okay? And we would measure it out. We're going to draw our line out to 4, and then we're going to draw 7 more tenths, and that's right about there, okay? 7 more tenths is right about there. Ooh, I might have gone a little bit too far. When you're dealing with small little measurements, sometimes it's easy to go just a tad too far. But there we have it, right? So that's all the way out there, 4 centimeters and 7/10. So that also equals, you could call it 47 millimeters, or you could call it 4 centimeters and 7 millimeters. There's another way to look at it. And we'll do one more example down here. I'll switch to green for this one. We have 9.6 centimeters. So I'm going to write that. Well, first of all, we're going to think about it. That is 9 and 6/10, right? And we're going to draw our line from 0 all the way out here to 9. And then we will go 6 more tenths and try to get that as exact as possible. That's pretty close. Okay. And if we think about it a couple of other ways, so that's 9 centimeters and 6/10 of a centimeter, or you could think of it as 9 centimeters and 6 millimeters, or you could think of it as 96 millimeters if you just want to go millimeters, right? Because it takes 10 millimeters to equal a centimeter. So 9.6 centimeters is 9 centimeters and 6 millimeters. All right, ladies and gentlemen, one more thing I want to get across to you today. When you are thinking about decimals, you can also think about it in terms of fractions. And how do they relate to fractions? Because a decimal is also part of a whole. If you want to change a fraction into a decimal, the easiest way that will always work is to divide your denominator. Divide by your denominator to change a fraction into a decimal. So if you take 5 and you divide it into 3, well, you say to yourself, okay, 5 doesn't fit into 3. What do I do? Well, you're going to add a decimal point, and then you're going to annex a 0. So now I have 3 ones and no tenths. So that's still equal to 3. Okay, so 5. Now I could say, though, how many times does it fit into 30? And I could say that's going to fit 6 times. 6 times 5 is 30, and I'm going to subtract, and I have none left over. So my answer is 0.6. That's how you can think of it. Now, another way is you can use equivalent fractions. So you can take your 3 over 5. You say, okay, I can change that into a 10. And you have to change it into something kind of a 10 or 100 or 1,000th or something like that. But I'm going to say times 2 and times 2, and I get 6 over 10. And if I get 6 over 10, then I know that that is equivalent to 0.6 because that is 0 ones and 6 tenths. Let's take this other example down here. We have 3/4. Well, I'm going to start out and I'm going to divide by my denominator again. And look at that, I can't do 4 into 3. So I'm going to annex a decimal point and annex a 0. And I do 4 fits into 30 7 times. 7 times 4 is 28. I have a 2 left over. And I'm going to bring down a 0. 4 fits into 25 times with nothing left over. And I end up with 0.75. 0.75. This one is trickier to do with equivalent fractions, but you can. You take your 3 over 4 and you say, okay, I need to change that into a 10. Ooh, I can't change a 4 into a 10. Can I change it into 100? Yes, I can. And we will say 4 times 25 and 3 times 25. Using equivalent fractions, I get 75 over 100, which equals 0.75. So if you don't quite understand this last part, no problem. I just wanted to give you an introduction today. I want you to keep practicing. And remember, the more you practice, the better you get at this. Keep learning, keep practicing, and have a great day, students. Bye.